This video is sponsored by EA. Hey guys, just before we get started with today's video, I just want to let you know that the guys over at EA Australia have given me some Battlefield 5 shirts to give away in my next few videos. So long story short, if you want a chance to win one of these, all you have to do is retweet the Twitter post for this video on Twitter, follow me and EA Australia, and you'll go into the draw. Check out the full details in the description section down below. Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld again, and in today's video we're going to talk about some of my first impressions of war stories in Battlefield 5. And that's because, like I mentioned in the last few videos, last week I got a chance to attend an event in Sydney where I got to play some of these war stories firsthand. Now, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of World War II history, and so one of the things I was really looking for when I was going into the play session was how DICE explored this. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Firstly, are war stories in BF5 any good? And most importantly, is it an authentic and unique World War II experience? Okay, so to kick off, the first thing I want to mention about war stories is that when you get into them, the first thing you'll notice is that they've all got a very different tone. For example, I actually played the Nordilease war story first, which is the one about the Norwegian resistance forces, and I was kind of surprised at how dark and serious it was. On the other hand though, Under No Flag is a story about the British Special Boat Section, and the way Eric Holmes, design director at DICE, put it at the event is that it's kind of like a Guy Ritchie movie crossed with Mad Max Fury Road. And, well, I think he's pretty correct when he says that. It's serious, but it's got a dark British humour to it, and especially towards the end of what we played, it's got a lot of action as well. The other thing I think that's worth mentioning about what I played is that it does look like DICE have lived up to their promise of giving us unique and untold stories from World War II. Because even though they aren't technically true stories, they are based on historical events and groups, like for example in Tirolua, which is a story that follows the journey of a group of French colonial forces. And I'm not sure about you, but this one in particular definitely was unique for me because until it was announced, even though I am a history buff, I'd never heard of the Tirolua before. And to a lesser extent, I could say the same thing of the Norwegian resistance. So I really think by the time I got to the end of these stories, I actually felt like I had learned something. Now, obviously, none of this really matters unless the gameplay itself is worth playing. And if you're a fan of FPS games, you'd know by now that the campaigns can be pretty lackluster. And so I've got to admit, I did jump into BF5 war stories thinking they were going to be pretty ordinary, but I was actually pretty surprised at how fun and challenging they were. Also, I should mention that I was playing on medium difficulty, so even though I felt like I was getting away with a lot of stupid mistakes, I could imagine that on hardcore you wouldn't. So in other words, if you are looking for a more gritty and authentic single-player experience, well, don't worry because that is there, and the game will punish you if you really want it to. One of the things that I found made it really challenging was that just like in multiplayer, it seemed like ammo was a lot scarcer than it normally would be. And so you'll see a few times in this gameplay that I was specifically trying to go out of my way to pick up ammo from enemy bodies, and I was also switching weapons around a fair bit. Also, speaking of weapons, not only can you pick them up off enemies, there's also crates scattered around the map where a range of different guns spawn. And some of these are fully spec'd out with attachments and visual customization. And I was even told, if you know where to look, that you can even find a flare gun which calls in artillery strikes. Now, on another note, another thing worth mentioning that I noticed about the gameplay in these stories was the fact that DICE are really trying to allow you to use different strategies to complete goals. Because firstly, on the surface, they've designed the levels to be a lot less linear than they usually are, and they've also added in a lot of features that allow you to stealth your way through missions now. In fact, I think it's probably at the point now where you could even just flank around enemies and complete whole missions without firing your gun at all. And that's pretty useful because I found another thing that makes these missions challenging is that the enemies have a class and a tier system, which gives them unique abilities that you'll need to play around. But finally, to finish up, the most important thing I think is that in war stories, DICE have really tried to design characters that you'll grow to have an emotional attachment to. And one thing that really helps that out is while the war stories are still fairly short, they are a bit longer than they were in BF1 and will probably take you an hour or two to complete. Also, like I've spoken about in another recent video, there's actually a whole war story called The Last Tiger, focused on the actions of a German tank crew struggling against insurmountable odds in the final battles of World War II. And although we will have to wait until about December to see what this one's all about, it is bound to be pretty controversial because, well, we've never seen Germany as a playable faction in single player before. But anyway, guys, I guess that just about wraps up this video, so make sure you let me know what you think about Battlefield 5 war stories in the comment section below. Also, let me know what you think of the stories that they did choose, and let me know if you've got any ideas for war stories that you'd like to see in the future. As always though, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of these videos. And also don't forget you can find my Twitter and Discord links down there as well if you want to keep in touch. And as always, until next time, see you later and have a good one.